So let's go Zoom first. So Fleet, if you would introduce yourself.
Good afternoon.
Yep. And where are you, Fleet?
Oh, the audio is a little garbled, so pardon me on that. I'm just an interested party. I live in Southport.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Jeff Allison?
Hey there. Yeah, I'm just interested too. I'm over in Bayville.
Okay, thank you,
Just
Jeff.
want to hear what this is all about. Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. And Rob?
Yes, good evening. My name is Rob Trotta, and I'm the project director for New England Aquaventus.
Great, thank you. And then we'll go around the room. Fritz?
Chris Freudenberger, Blue Bay Industry.
Allison Evans, Blue Bay Harbor resident. Allison Roy, East Blue Bay resident. Lisa Matthews, Blue Bay Harbor resident.
Roger Matthews, Blue Bay Harbor.
Mark Osborne, Blue Bay Harbor, and on the select board.
Noel Twig, Blue Bay.
And Nell Tharp, East Blue Bay, Town of Blue Bay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Rob, I want to put you in the hot seat first because we've been hearing a lot of information that RWE sold their shares to Diamond Mitsubishi, that the project's not going to come into Bigelow, that there's rumors going around. So if you could state the current status, everybody would be appreciative.
Sure, of course. Now, let me start with the announcement. I believe that it was posted by RWE on July 3rd, if the day is correct to me. And you're correct, is that as all are probably were aware, is that New England Aquaventus is a joint venture between Diamond Offshore Wind and RWE International. And RWE has sold their shares of the project to Diamond Offshore Wind. Their logic behind or reasons behind that, I'd have to ask them, and I'm not subject to that information. I'm the execution person. I'm gonna that gets it done. But they did decide, and Diamond decided to acquire their part of the project. That does not change any of the dynamics or the review or the status or where we are within the project. It's a hard stop. So
Okay.
to the extent that where we've spoke about landfall, to the extent of where the turbine, is defined to be located, the review, the information, all the stuff that, if you will, is in my remit to do, stays the same. Has not shifted, has not moved. We're still in that process of trying to optimize the project and optimize the cost and looking at different aspects of it. There were a couple other articles, I believe, that have been put out since our last meeting. And one of them quotes was an interview with Chris Wisman, who's our CEO, as well as there was an article, I believe, since that time with Dr. Habib, from the University of Maine, and I believe that the comments were very consistent. That being that we are looking for ways to optimize the project. We've spoken on numerous occasions in this group and others that it's one thing to have a design from the University of Maine. It's another thing to then put it into production and to manufacture it and then to operate it. And we continue, not a skip, with that review and that assessment of that technology. The University of Maine, we continue to work with to find ways to potentially optimize. Is there a different way to do this to make this more cost effective and less of it moving forward? That is also continues on with reviews with the Department of Energy, which is invested with the University of Maine with grants for the technology. So all this continues despite what has happened with RWE. The entity stays in its place and continues in my remit, to find ways and to work through this project to be successful has not changed.
Okay. So that's
I
good.
hope.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say, Rob?
No, and I hope that hope that helps a little bit. It's also, I know, I appreciate that it's the rumors mill does I appreciate there are, there could be other discussions or concerns, this, and it's unfortunate that it's taking so long of a time, because that allows for more of these discussions or rumors to start. Time is not a friend of that type of aspect. It's unfortunate, but I have no way to expedite the current work in which we're doing, any more than I already am, because we all want to get to a point of the decisions in the next round of meetings, public meetings.
Yes. And so any update on a potential timeline for when people can expect information about next steps?
So no, nothing changed from our previous discussions, is that we are still committing or still working through to how this, where we be in the early Q4, so October, November, December, that period, that remains our target, and we continue to work towards those dates. If we could expedite that, let me trust you, trust you, trust me. We will come forward with anything should we have any more information about the timing or any about thing about next meetings or public. We will not wait till then. We're targeting to be no later than then.
So Q4, not necessarily October, but somewhere in Q4.
Yes, October, November, Q4 is that October, December period. Yeah.
Didn't want people to.
So that remains our target now. I know. I wish we could all, there's nothing more than I want to do in these meetings, to come with some more, so that we've reached decisions and put some more specifics on. But until that time, I don't have the ability to.
Yeah, and for our purposes, if we're working on the potential benefit that would be served by the benefits of FEMA, obviously, if the project doesn't go forward, then we don't have any other reason to meet other than everybody's wonderful and we're glad you're here. But so that it's an important thing for us as well, that we don't want to take up people's time if the project doesn't go forward. And yet if it does, obviously we want to have everything ready for a benefit agreement. I was just reading the prior documents that, suggested that we would be ready in 2022. And, it was an optimistic timeline. So stuff that's on the NEAV website. So the website hasn't been updated.
Oh, okay. No, not too good. Thank you for pointing that out.
Allison?
Yeah, I have a quick question for you, Rob. Can you clarify exactly what in Q4 is the next step? Like is it a decision to continue to give us an update that things are going forward? Or, I'm sorry, I guess I need a little clarification.
Sure. I think, what we were referencing that were happening later in this year, Q4, is the finalization of all the work that's been going into to determine the means and the methods of how this would be constructed, and the potential to then come forward to then start some more of the additional consultations, which will lead to additional permitting that would be required for this facility. So I would imagine target is that decisions of how we're going to be progressing, because I'm here to make it happen. We'll be able to have those discussions later this year, before the end of the year in Q4. That's the type of information I'm targeting to bring forward by the end of the year. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I had a follow-up question.
Sure.
Do you have any legislative updates? Is there anything in legislature that's pending that could affect going forward in Q4 that you know about?
Sure. Very good. There's an awful lot in the paper. A lot has happened this legislative session. An awful lot. But I can say very clearly that activity does not impact the project. That is separate to the future. Procurement policies, etc. you know, how the port is going to be. Now, if a port could be done in our time period, that would help, but we're not counting, you know, on port facilities, you know, being completed to support this project. It would be great if they could be, but that's not realistic from a timing perspective.
Okay, so port facilities are not relevant to the timing of going forward here.
With
A
this-
little clarification is that port facilities to construct, fabricate and assemble and launch will be very important. As you asked me about the legislative side of this, you know, for the state, you know, as far as what they're doing for the state for the port facilities, you know, to support either the research array or future projects,
Right.
that is something separate. So port facilities are terribly important for what
Right.
we're doing with the demonstration, but the legislative pieces of that are not going to be relevant to the demonstration project. The demonstration project will not have the benefit of the legislative action that's being taken to move forward with port facilities for the state. So.
That question?
Is this a single turbine experimental unit by University of Maine, or no, is it? That's being proposed?
Yes, you know, we think about it, the state of Maine, the energy roadmap that came out, you know, the state of Maine's energy roadmap is the vision is for one. This is just the demonstration project that we call NEAV, that demonstrate the technology and the fabric and how that can move forward, to then move to a research array, right? To then study it. And that is the 144 megawatts, which is the limit, but is likely going to be around 10 turbines, you know, at a different location, right? To then study and then to bring that forward to then 100, which is then that is the aspect of the BOEM leases that are active right now, that process within the state of Maine for the call area, as I call it, to refine the area in which the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management will auction the leases in federal waters. So this is that first step, if you will. You know?
There are thousands of turbines spinning right now around the world, and many different areas in the United States alone, particularly the East Coast, that are being developed right now. The turbine technology and the foundation and the setup and required construction vessels and maintenance vessels, it's all pretty much set. This is a huge effort and expenditure for one experimental turbine, when turbines and nacelles can be ordered around the world by the best people that create them right now. Why are we experimenting and putting this huge expense into one turbine?
So the state of Maine vision for this, which is the state of Maine vision and not anyone else's vision for this, is that, and we'll make something clear, I'm sorry, small step back, is that the referencing, you're very correct, is that the offshore wind industry is not in its infancy, if you will. It is definitely at advanced stages for shallower waters with monopile foundations. So the key difference here, you know, is the floating technology, which there are numerous demonstration projects out there. I think about 3 or so at this time throughout the world, but the floating foundation technology that will be required in the depths of the water that you have within the Gulf of Maine or the West Coast as well, but that's really the Gulf of Maine, and the vision of the state to lead that technology, be a leader in that technology, as far as from the University of Maine for its patents with the foundation to facilities to construct and operate these facilities, other facilities that are now under construction in the US their port facilities are very different than facility that you would need for a floating foundation. These are staging areas, if you will. So the components come in from international locations or whatever, they stack them, they put them together, and bring them out, and assemble, in the ocean. This type of port facility is going to be extremely, a very different type of manufacturing facility that would be required for floating foundations. Whether or not it makes sense to do one foundation, at the time, that is something that we continue to look at, as far as where the technology sits and where it moves forward. And those are discussions that will continue, but my remit has not changed. As I said before, my remit as the project director is to define those costs and find the best way to do it, define the methodologies with the team to bring that type of information for a decision. That's my remit. I hope that helps.
Okay, that's interesting that you're saying you're going to be building the floating foundation on site in the state of Maine. Is that correct?
So the legislation requires us to use commercially best efforts. You better believe it, to construct, within the state of Maine. It also has requirements for labor force and vendors within the state of Maine. You bet. Yes, it does.
And that's a big boost for this state because doing the floating foundations is very big job, very big technical.
We believe so, and the state of Maine believes so, and that is so the key here is that these other facilities that are moving forward and some under construction are not floating. That's the key difference here, and that this technology does need to be tested. It does need to be shown, and whether or not we've done enough to date with the demonstration project with the University of Maine and in the modeling and all, that's something that has to be decided at a different time, different level. I need to determine where, how, and what that cost would be for that consideration. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, more. I've got more questions if I may.
Yep.
This single floating turbine unit is already situated off Monhegan in a certain spot right now. Is that correct?
So it'll be off of Monhegan Island within that the plantation area, and is not there today. The rough location, has been decided, but then where exactly the moorings fit will depend on some of the decisions on the technology, but you can say in general the area is been defined. Yeah.
Okay. So the follow-on turbine units would not necessarily be in this same area.
They will not be in the same area. I could definitively say that they will not be, in the same area. Yeah.
Yeah. So the cables coming to a substation ashore, that's a huge project in itself, and it's too bad we couldn't do it all at once for 10 or 15 or 20 proposed units instead of just one.
I could not agree more, that it's always better to do things once than twice if you can. But unfortunately, one of the key restriction of such such a layout or a scheme within this project is that the single turbine project is interconnecting into Central Maine Power's distribution system, not transmission system. When you get much larger than where we are right now, you need to be in the transmission, the high voltage, versus the low voltage. And the interconnection that we're working at the current location that would not support that.
Yeah. Just in the news recently, 2 offshore wind projects, very large ones, one in Rhode Island, I think one in Massachusetts, were disapproved because of the costs involved. The electrical utilities decided not to sign the final contract. And this happened in the news just a few days ago. The costs are just absolutely huge, and somebody's got to buy the electricity. And there's even a Ocean City, New Jersey town that is holding up the permit for the electric cables to come ashore because nobody in the town wants the interruption of these cables. And doing work studies or workshops like this to get the information out would be a very good thing as you're doing, so people know what's going to happen.
We've talked
So
about.
I could briefly speak to that if you want, Mel, just very briefly, is to the gentleman's statement, is there's been an awful lot in the press for numerous projects that signed power purchase agreements under different structures, several years ago. And now with the costs that they're saying, they're saying that they cannot provide they cannot construct and operate the facilities that are committed to numerous years ago under the structure in which they then submitted or were awarded their power purchase agreements. And some have announced that they're actually paying penalties to get out of them.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
$50 million.
that is very public and that kind of puts the emphasis still in where I'm at with this project, is to how do we be more creative, and how do we do things in a manner to make it work, because we're dealing with a structure that's already been set by the state, and I need to find a way to make that peg fit.
It's not easy, is it?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Rob. That was very helpful.
Okay.
The other thing we were going to talk about today is what the potential benefits are for a proposed benefits agreement. So part of the process is that NEAV is offering a community benefits agreement to offset the disruption. And that's part of the package, providing it goes forward and all systems are go. And the community group has worked for a long time developing this and getting input, but the time that has passed while all of this stuff is happening in the background means that we need to get new input from the community. So what I would like to do next is just to bring up the matrix so that everybody can see it. And then we can talk through it. There may be other things that people want to add to it. And go from there. So, Rob, you're welcome to stay, but I don't think you have to. Anybody feel strongly about having Rob? This is a community discussion, so I think after all your travel, it'd be kind to let you go. You're muted. Rob, you're muted.
That's just the jet lag. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. So I would if it's okay, I will stay on for about a quarter or so, at least, and hear how the dialogue's going. But I do appreciate the opportunity. I will stay on for a little bit longer, but if I could be dismissed, that would be helpful.
Yep. Okay. So hang in there.
Okay.
All right. So I am gonna have to move things around a little bit.
Thank you,
so
Rob.
bear with me. Oh, there we go. So everybody should be able to see this. And I know everybody else is hiding behind there. Well, I do one thing at a time. Let's see if we can squeeze them off to the side for right now. All right. So the items that we have on the matrix so far, Allison, do you want to talk about it?
I can talk about the general setup of the matrix. So we're calling it the matrix, but it was basically the different ideas that we could sink some of the money that NEAV was going to contribute as a community benefit to Booth Bay Harbor. And we identified, I don't know, 6 different categories. If you want to go, actually, let's go across first, I guess. in the rows. So these were the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 almost different ideas that the community brought forward to utilize the money that NEAV was going to give us, as Nell stated, as part of this demonstration project. So the first was a sewer expansion, and then in the columns, in column A, we identified the different benefits for each of those different topic areas. So if you want to read them, it's kind of hard for me to.
Yep, so there's a timeline to implementation, a description of the potential project, the long-term public safety and health benefit, which is what NEAV requires for the project, a very loose cost estimate. They were guesstimates more than estimates. Who benefits? And I don't know if there's anything after that. Yes. Whether we need other municipal or state entities to be involved, and whether additional funding would be required, and then how hard or easy it is to execute it.
So, and this is all on our web page.
It's all on our drive.
Our drive.
Yeah.
So if you want to get into this and look at this a little bit more closely, just
Yeah.
send something to Nell, get it on the distribution list.
Yeah, to the Blue Bay community benefits. I can't remember the email address, so.
Email. So the first one was the sewer expansion to East Blue Bay. And I don't know if we want to read down through each of those different highlights, but I'll just read across the different things and then folks can ask questions. How's that sound? So sewer expansion to East Blue Bay. The second was road and traffic improvements from 96 to East Blue Bay, to Bigelow.
27 was from the substation.
Right, from the substation to Bigelow, and that includes, so throughout East Blue Bay Village mostly. Year-round public water to East Blue Bay, which, for summer and year-round residents, a lot of folks that are on wells. Electric utility improvements, and that included dropping lines, I guess, underground from the same areas, from substation to Bigelow around. Platform technology fee. So
That's not an option.
okay.
So
So
it's
we'll
still in there because I didn't take anything out, but
And then once we opened it up to a larger group, there was additional things like school improvements was also one of the categories we added. Community fund to be utilized in any way that Blue Bay Harbor would like to see it utilized. Community health center, right? So talking about any kind of additional care and health care that might be contributed to, I think it's elder care, right? I don't know specifically the details on that one. And then fund existing community projects. One of the things that's not on here that I requested to be on here is funds for the Maritime District and fishing community. Which I definitely think we need to add there.
and how would those meet the requirements for health and safety? So that's the,
Right, and then,
that would have to be specified when you get there, folks. Where to go?
Right.
Back in here. You're supposed to be right there.
so there are a lot, there's not, the money, I think, what did Rob, I think NEAV was willing to contribute up to 1 million, right, and so these were the different things. Clearly, some of these things are going to cost a lot more than 1 million. But that's why we had the other categories. If we got worked with the towns, if it was over a longer period of time, to get matching funds. One of the other things actually we might consider now too, and it's coming up more and more, is resiliency. Just things like public works resiliency in the towns around, like, for example, the footbridge had to be raised because of rising sea level. So anything like that, and I know there's a lot of matching funds right now, federal level, for municipalities. So we could probably double or triple the money that NEAV would give. So that might be another category we want to talk about and add thoughtfully. How?
on this one.
Yeah. Either on
Oh,
this one or
sorry.
actually another category and you know, where money goes. So. it could
Okay,
be-
got it,
yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Uh,
If we have wastewater treatment facilities that are below sea level, you know, below flood level, anything like that, public utilities that are below sea level.
I'm just gonna put sea level
Or
rise,
not
just
sea
so that I
level,
don't forget.
but, yeah. So that would be another potential moving forward that wasn't brought up.
Any other ideas?
Question?
Just, overboard discharge, would that be part of one of those?
Yeah, that was actually part of the sewer extension, but it couldn't be pulled out as something separate. And I know that the DEP may have matching funds still, to help people, like, for example, the mill pond has 3 existing overboard discharges. I think Washburn and Dowdy has one of the biggest overboard discharges still.
I think Lenny Bay has the most overboard discharge.
Right, Lenape Bay, perfect, yeah, yep. So, and I think that those funds potentially could be matched too. So yeah, so these are the kinds of ideas that we'd love to add to this list. I guess people think that would be.
For the environment, water, sewer, that's pretty darn basic.
Yes,
Burying underground, power cables, I think that would be a help.
especially with the winds that we get. On
Winds,
these Space
storms.
Peninsula. Yeah,
Blow downs, trees.
Yep.
But also, excuse me, what you said about maritime,
yeah,
I'm a mariner, and this is an offshore floating turbine, which is definitely maritime. So I think maritime should segue into,
there should be a category
yeah.
for maritime, yeah.
or
And how we define that, that would be to come, but I think that they're the user group that's going to be affected by this as well.
absolutely affected by this, very much so.
And ultimately keep in mind as well that you've got 2 municipalities that have to make a decision, and the select boards are going to make the determination of what the division of the appropriated funds will be. And then what use in each of those townships will be. One of the things that I brought up with the initial question in the fall with Rob was, where did they come up with the number? Because to me, $1 million zeros is an arbitrary number. It's just came from the financial statement. So the towns could actually approach it from a request of a project, rather than or an allocated amount of funds that you could request. For instance, if you're laying the cable, you know, from Bigelow, whether it's Murray Hill or whether it's running up 96 or so, just have a request that the 60-inch paved, you know, a combination pedestrian bicycle way be capped on that use of the cable. They have the equipment there, and then you would have, you know, some combined or overlaying funding from MDOT, and there are also federal funds on complete streets projects and so on. So you've got the adjacent funds, and you could also, from the township point of view, request a project rather than accepting the dollar amount of funds that they've offered. It could be approached a different way, to go back to the table and say, we've decided that we want this. And this is the project cost. This is the project that we're asking you to do to enhance our health and well-being, our safety, and this is the cost. And of what portion of supplement, and you're kind of really in an exchange or in a negotiating, if you will. Because anything that's, the answer from NEAV was, we used other similar projects. So my question was, other floating wind turbine projects in the Gulf of Maine? He said, no, we didn't have any of those. So to me, that indicates that that's an arbitrary number because they can. So I think that contribution amount is up for discussion, in my view.
They have absolutely zero obligation to give us any,
Right.
because it was not negotiated ahead of time.
Right.
So once the paperwork was signed at Bigelow, for the Bigelow comes ashore, like it all goes to the state. So as a town, we have absolutely, we can't say you can't do it because we want this project, like they can do whatever, they can give us nothing.
But to maximize it though, you could in fact find out what has the most parallel funding available federal and state. to maximize the dollar.
Right, which we have talked about, and, you know, DOT is
So
probably
they offset
been the most responsive in that, in our discussion. So, you know, the sewer district said if you find the matching funds, then we'll consider it, but we're not gonna go look. So, you know, I think they have a bunch of other things going on, and that was not their priority. So I understand that, and yeah, that, you know, and that would be up to the towns to say, if we really want this project, we'll go looking for the funds, because obviously a community group, that is not an option for them. So,
Having an open ended, I mean, just look at the sidewalk project going on right now. I mean, it's just a, it's a rolling target of what the cost is gonna be.
yeah,
So I don't know if this company or these investors are gonna wanna have an open-ended check attached to a project. I mean, again, from the beginning of it, that's the thing for.
You can establish a dollar amount from
Right.
a current.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Just, I don't know if they do an open-ended, is my point.
What you proposed, or suggested that maybe instead of asking for a dollar amount, ask for a project, but something along the lines that when they're burying this cable to the substation from Bigelow, just request on your hands and knees maybe, but request that the overhead power lines be buried along with the cable. And two, let's put in the sidewalk and bike path on top of what they've already cleared and compacted the soil. That kind of goes hand in hand with that particular burying project.
Yeah, and
So maybe they would very much go for that idea.
so I think the big thing is what is of interest to the towns, what is within the, you know, reasonable budget with whoever you can work with. And to have, preferably the towns agree on a joint project that has a dollar amount and it gets allocated however it needs to make that project happen, as opposed to two separate projects. That won't, net us the most. In discussions about burying the cables with CMP, they were not in favor of that. They said that was, yes, it was prohibitive for the cost. DOT was very enthusiastic about having a paved shoulder, not a sidewalk, no curbing. A paved shoulder that was a multi-use path, because the cost goes up exponentially once you start adding curbing. It also creates more challenges for plowing. And they were also very encouraging about raised sidewalks in the East Loop Bay Village, and other, crosswalk safety items. So, you know, and that would be both towns, because it would go from it would go along the path from the substation, to Bigelow. So,
That's a clarifying question.
yes,
So what is the role of this group? Is our job to identify a variety of projects and then propose them to the selectmen, or is it to narrow down the list to a couple?
so you ask a fabulous question, because in the beginning, we were like, okay, we've got all these things, what do we do with it? And we went to the boards of selectmen and they were like, okay, well, what do you want us to do with it? So, it kind of languished for a little bit, and then we brought it back up because their timeline slowed with NEAV, so there was no urgency to it, and the towns have other work that is a priority. And then what we have requested of each town is to have the project on their agenda. So, you know, we've presented to both towns, at least once, sometimes more than once. So that then they can come back up for discussion as these things move along. And ultimately, the town will have to decide what's the project going to be, but we wanted community input as opposed to the town deciding. The two towns deciding, this is what we want to do. We wanted it to be a community-driven project. And, you know, the community group is what actually encouraged me to make an offer of having a community benefit fund. So the role of the community group is to facilitate communication with the community and NEAV. And then to facilitate communication about potential benefits with the towns and hold the towns accountable to doing a project that is, has been suggested and is of interest to the community. So, if we have other things to put on here, like we may want to note that, this isn't going to work. Like in the beginning, we were just like pie in the sky. Let's think about it. So the platform technology, well, that's humane. That has nothing to do with the project. That's not an option. So, we can ditch that, and I don't want to take it out.
One of the focus too, after we put this together, was to hand this over to the town, because the town really needs to take this and move forward.
Yes.
They need to decide, and we propose different tools to do that. We've developed a survey, we developed some other tools that they could use and send out to, their constituents to find out what are the top priorities here that you would like to see. And then one of those choices is to not to do anything at all, or not to take the money, because people that, as we just heard from I'm sorry, we didn't catch your name.
Brad Collins.
That in other communities, people don't want some of this. They don't want to take money. They don't want to be involved in at all. So really it's up to the town, and my kind of understanding was next step was that the town would take this and do something with it. And we were charged with just putting together a package for them to be able to take it and move with it.
It's a really great list.
Yeah.
That sounds so far.
And trying to get the towns up to speed when, these are citizen select boards, and they are not dedicated people. Not that is not right. They don't have dedicated time to go into this. So we were trying to do the background work to make it easier for the towns and to facilitate the towns workshopping together about it, so that it wasn't one town thinks this and the other, so there was this thinking of ourselves as, a region.
But also the town has the expertise to know exactly what they need too.
Yeah.
So, we're giving them some ideas, but really the town, if they are participating in some sustainability work already, that would be a perfect thing that they could then add to the list, and it's within a scope of cost. So they actually have more knowledge to be able to add to and refine this more than we could.
That's great.
So, but we haven't heard more from the town. I think that's. where
Well,
we're at,
I mean,
right?
what we have, the commitments from the town is it'll be on the agendas, and we will have select people attending the meetings, and we'll hopefully have this dialogue, and I'll find out from Dale why he wasn't able to attend tonight. Life happens. So really part of our reason for wanting to have the summer meeting and to really call it a summer meeting is so that we can have people who are property owners but may not be residents also have a voice, because so often if you can't vote, you don't have a voice. And so this is an opportunity to really hear from everybody, whether you rent, whether you own, whether you, for anybody who lives in Booth Bay. And interested to have someone from Southport, because it affects, whatever happens, it's going to affect everybody in the region. So, but next steps, ideally, we've been kind of in this holding pattern, and this has been our opportunity to check in with NEAV, and Rob has been very gracious to come to all of the meetings, or almost all of them, just like any of us, where everybody switches around, except for you and me. And to give us an update of where it is, because that's a key piece of it, and the select board, that's not part of what they're about.
So one question, what is timing wise, at what point does this project happen, and at what point does this money, funds become available?
Yeah, we don't know that.
All right. I mean,
Quarter
is it-
four will get an update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the thing is it best case scenario in 12 months, or are they planning 2028? You know what I'm saying?
No, sooner than that. So Rob, assuming you're still there.
So just it's always the number one question is just tell us when, right? And I'm going to answer this. There's two quick things I want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as understanding, process it and make sure just get that out, and then I'll address the best I can on the timing. Okay. The first thing I just wanted to make sure we discussed this in previous meetings, but I think much for the benefit of everyone that's there today is that this offer of a community benefits agreement does not come with an expiration date. So this doesn't need to be done, today. It doesn't need to be done, in December or whenever we come back and figure out, where it could be. So it'd be, yes, if there's some benefits of economies of scale with other projects are happening. Yes, they should be considered, right? But we cannot commit to. So number one, it's not going to expire. So we have time to work through this process to the way that it fits the needs of the communities. Number two is that there's this benefit is continuing, and Nell kind of spoke to it a little bit before, but I want to make sure it was heard, is that it is contingent upon the project going to financial investment decision, right? So it is the contingent, by the project getting all its permits approved, getting everything completed, and then deciding the board to move forward with that investment. Okay. So I think, sir, that is the date that we're kind of talking about now. It'd be great to be able to say, okay, the project comes back to us before the end of the year. We need to host a series of community events to inform people and get additional feedback on them, right? Okay. So that's the vision. That's my vision, of when we finally have things kind of buttoned down. But I shouldn't say buttoned down, in a position that we could present, that they're the findings, to get input. And then so then you say, okay, then when is going to be the FID? When are you going to get to the point you could actually say these funds will be there? I believe, that type of date and that target is probably a good year away from the decision in which we make this, how to move forward. So it probably will be late in 2024 for that type of decision to happen, that you could take it to the bank, if you will.
Yeah, the reason I ask on that is just because, one, things change. And two, instead of getting into too heated of a debate on these certain things and the town's voting and everyone says, okay, and then the project doesn't happen.
Right.
Why would we bother ruffling feathers and upsetting people if it doesn't really happen?
Yeah.
So I think getting a plan to say, these are all these wonderful projects that we have, and this is the process. And once we get the green light, then we're going to need to figure this out and, and then make a final decision is probably the best thing. I just won't want to go through the whole battle of deciding on who's getting what and how much each town's paying, and then the project not happen. So.
And that's where we are. And the main point of having these meetings on a monthly basis is as a placeholder to check in with Rob about the stats.
No, that's great.
At this point,
and I think
because until it moves forward, then we're in a holy cow.
And I think there is work that can be done between now and that green light, and that is, like you said, to find additional funding or matching funds or whoever can, put a little bit of time in, so that when you do get the green light, then you can sit there and say, well, this project will get this, and this could maybe get that, and having it all ready to go is valuable.
It is valuable. Yeah. All right. So any other comments about the matrix, things you want to add to it, questions you have about it? Because otherwise I'll take it down. Anything from anybody who is on Zoom? Questions, comments?
Not at this time. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. All right. So
No, if I may, just one comment last from my side is that this has been a great forum, not just for community benefits, but I think we had like 14 people, attend the last one, and we did a lot of informing about the project or questions or, addressing the rumor mill, so, so maybe we won't, we won't get through the point of making decisions on community benefits. But I, for one, think there's a high value in these discussions just by the amount of education and the things that we've been able to discuss, just kind of with people that, maybe I may repeat it, but that's fine with me because the more, education is always the best tool in anything like this. So I applaud the continued commitment to it.
Yep. Thank you very much, Rob. I appreciate that. And that's a perfect segue into saying that I think we should skip the August meeting because we did this one late and we don't need another meeting in the middle of August. Because it's the first week. It's the first Thursday of the month, typically.
And now I commit to you and to the group, should there be something very, if I'm in that position, I will make a notice. We will make some notice, but I do not anticipate that. But should there be, I won't wait.
Okay, otherwise we'll just wait until September and I have the e-list of everybody. So if you send me something, if there's something that changes, I can send it out to everybody.
Great. But we're right around the corner, but I don't anticipate that. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So any objection to skipping August? Seems like a reasonable thing since we went late into this month, so it'll be the first Thursday.
It may be sunny. We might be outside.
Yeah. Right.
Cross your fingers.
We have to finish by 6 o'clock to get people outside. It's such a nice day, so. Any other questions, comments, feedback before we close? You've got 8 minutes.
I've actually got one. Rob, I'm Fritz with the Boothbay Register. One thing I wanted to get clarified with your updates on where the project is can you let me know where the status of the landing site is? Because one thing I didn't hear very clearly in your update was a mention of Bigelow or a mention of any change. That's one of the rumor mill things. And I just wanted to hear from you kind of
Sure.
where the landing site is right now.
Sure. What we would define as the landfall for the cable, so where the cable will come ashore, it has not changed. That is agreement has been reached with Bigelow Labs, and that will be the location for the landfall.
Okay, thank you.
Leaning towards.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Anything else? Going once, going twice? Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.